Hi. What if I told you your potential was anonymous? What does that mean? That means you have a potential that has not been known yet. I'd like to talk to you today about taking that extra step to find your potential and to find a lifelong filled not with regret, but with a sense of being. This will be achieved through finding interests and developing them to a hobby. So you could fight depressive feelings, fight loneliness, and envision a future where everything just seems a lot better. I'd like to start with saying, do you ever feel depressed or lonely, empty, possibly contemplating your life decisions 24/7? This is not a completely uncommon thing in life. In fact, it is very common with people who have a lot of free time on their hands, not doing anything. But how much is too much free time? How much of a negative consequence is that? Studies show from economy.org that 2.5 hours is the optimal time to have in free time. So what do you do in those other moments of free time that don't include just doing nothing? Is that something you could prevent having way too much time and feeling that emptiness? A San Francisco university study shows that 15 to 30% of productivity goes down in the workplace when you have no hobby or outside interests. This could be you. What is the solution to this? Well, first, you need to find an interest. Let me show you an example from my personal life. I used to be interested in attending fighting game tournaments, and I still am. It's when you play a fighting game and you compete with other people. You most likely will lose, but it's about having fun. I decided one day to propel this interest a little further into developing tournaments myself. That's when in high school I developed a club called the Video Game Club. Yeah, amazing title, but this club was devoted to hosting tournaments and bolstering the community. So about that interest that I initially had in putting it further, I was never really able, without that I couldn't have had this hobby of mine, which was organizing events for my club, which got people about every semester coming to my tournament. But could this be distracting towards your main goal of achieving a career? Well, it actually might be necessary. In the Wiley Online Library, there's a study called Benefiting from Creative Activity, the Positive Relationships, Creative Activity, Recovery Experiences, and Performance-Related Outcomes by Kevin J. Eshelman. And it shows that workers with hobbies did a lot better in their job. They had higher creative flows and more productivity because they never felt burnt out. Something to consider. What if you never do this? What if you live your life going to work, going to school, sleeping, doing the same thing right after, absolutely doing nothing to society, contributing absolutely nothing, not naming names, but in the Joe Rogan interview with MMA fighter David Leduc, he has a very interesting quote that I'd like to bring up today. If you inherently feel like you always wanted to be a chess master, but you never pursued it, you're gonna have that regret and longing for something. It's my best impression. I agree with this sentiment very much. You could live your entire life and only think of what you were never able to achieve. When you don't give it 100%, you always think of the 1%, 2%, 99% you never did with your life, and it'll haunt you for the rest of your life until you die. Moving on. What's a positive consequence from finding a hobby? Well, I like to point to one example that's kind of related to an example earlier. I have a friend named Alex, and he did the same thing I did, competing in fighting game tournaments. He went a different route, and he actually was good at the game that he played at. Just recently, he got top 8, which means he was in the 8 best players there at a recent major tournament called DreamHack Atlanta. Of course, it doesn't pay too well, but it's a really amazing achievement that I like to display for the sense of just showing like how well things could get if you have a hobby. You could level it up to where it becomes possibly your career, and then you end up having a job that you always like. You have no reason not to pursue a hobby, especially after this amazing illustration on the future and possible bad future this could have if you choose to do or not to do some kind of thing with your life. It's really just up to you to take the next step and finding out what you like and just working on it for a future that you could look back on and not regret at all. Your potential does not have to be anonymous. It could be the opposite of anonymous, that is a word that exists, I'm sure. It could be known. It's something. You could do something with your future that could be a realization of your potential. That is what I hope we all could realize after today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
How long was that speech?
6 minutes on the dot.